Well, with that, we're going to move on to my colleague Blaise Alleyne, who's going to discuss a little bit about the grassroots momentum that we've seen, especially in the GTA in the last couple of years. There's a lot of encouraging news there. Just to give you Blaise's background, he is a pro life activist, technologist, musician, writer, and public speaker. He is the Eastern Outreach Director for CCBR, the founder of Toronto Against Abortion, and the co author of CCBR's book, A Guide to Discussing Assisted Suicide. He has thousands of conversations about abortion over a decade and a half on the streets of Toronto under his belt and has provided support to pro-life campus and community outreach groups across Ontario for years. He has been involved in the pro-life movement since joining the University of Toronto Students for Life in 2005 and volunteered for 10 years as the president of Toronto Right to Life. He speaks on pro-life apologetics, strategy, and euthanasia across Canada and organizes regular pro-life outreach across the GTA on a regular basis. Over to you, Blaise.
Great, thanks so much. Well, I want to pick up where Tabitha left off in terms of talking about the need to use our voices to be active. And it's so important to use our voices to be active in the political arm of the pro-life movement year-round, not only when there's an election, but all through the year, as Tabitha explained. But I want to highlight how it's important not only to bring our voice to the halls of power in the political arm, or not only to abortion clinics where people are facing tough decisions about their pregnancies, but that we need to bring the truth about abortion out to the culture as well. We need to be able to make abortion unthinkable so that people will support pro-life bills and pro-life politicians. We need to make abortion unthinkable so that people will go to organizations like Aid to Women for help when they're facing a difficult pregnancy. We need to make abortion unthinkable so that people won't choose it. So the front lines of the fight on abortion is not only in the halls of political power or in front of the abortion clinics, but it's also in our communities. Each and every one of us has a unique circle of people that only we can reach. Our friends, our family, our coworkers or our classmates, our community, our city. And it's critical that we're active every day using our voices to defend voiceless preborn children in our communities on the front lines of the abortion debate to change the culture and make abortion unthinkable. That's why I want to take a few minutes here to talk about the growth and momentum of the pro-life movement in reaching the community here in Toronto. So for some background, I mean, pro-lifers have been active reaching out to the community in Toronto since the start of the pro-life movement in Canada. Toronto Right to Life, Michelle was on here from Toronto Right to Life earlier. Toronto Right to Life was founded in 1972 and was involved in 1983 when tens of thousands of people marched on Queen's Park. Pro-lifers have been organizing and reaching the culture for decades in Toronto. But for me, my story started in 2005 when I first got active in the pro-life movement with the University of Toronto Students for Life. And 15 years ago, we would once a year run the Abortion Awareness Project, which is a large display showing the humanity of preborn children, the inhumanity of abortion, and having conversations based on science and human rights with people on the University of Toronto campus. And when I went out as a first-year student, I was a little nervous and I wasn't really sure how it would go. And I ended up spending the whole day there talking to people. I realized it wasn't rocket science, right? For example, we use a simple human rights argument at the core of our apologetics. We ask a few simple questions. Do you believe in human rights? People are going to say yes. Well, who should get human rights? Well, human beings. Okay, if two human beings reproduce, what species is their offspring? Also human, right? So if human rights are for human beings, and they're for all of us, not just some of us, and we know from science that human life begins at fertilization, well, shouldn't human rights start when the human being starts? Doesn't it logically follow that abortion, an act of violence that destroys an innocent human being, doesn't it logically follow that abortion is a human rights violation? And I realized that it wasn't rocket science to be able to use science and human rights to defend the pro-life position. I saw people change their minds on abortion, and I was motivated to get involved. And it was also motivating to see pro-lifers come together to engage in that outreach. The club next door, McMaster Lifeline at McMaster University in Hamilton, had come to help out. But I want to talk to you about the growth, because back in 2005, we would get out there once a year at the University of Toronto, or there would be uh, uh, Toronto Right to Life would run a street campaign once a year in the summers, or there'd be other street campaigns maybe once a year in the summers. And we'd come together about once a year and reach out with people like the club next door that was an hour away in Hamilton. Well, in 2019, we have been active across 10 different post-secondary campuses in Toronto alone. The club next door at U of T is now walking distance at Ryerson University, and there's campus clubs all over the city, and students and non-students alike engaging in about 5 to 10 activism sessions every week across Toronto. Door knocking to talk to people about abortion uh, at their homes, delivering postcards showing the humanity of preborn children and the inhumanity of abortion, uh, giving presentations inside high schools, being out on post-secondary campuses, being out to show the truth, hand out pamphlets, and have conversations at Union Station when 10,000 people will pass by in an hour and a half during rush hour. All throughout the week, all throughout the year, people are active. And I'm really encouraged. And I think that that growth and momentum comes from people seeing the difference that it makes when we take the truth about abortion out to the culture, when we show the humanity of preborn children and explain the science of when life begins, and we expose the visual evidence that abortion is an injustice. We see hearts and minds changed, and it's hard not to be inspired by that. It's hard not to be attracted to that. And I think that's why so many people have gotten involved. I remember at the University of Toronto when we started doing weekly outreach rather than just once a month or once a semester or once a year. I remember talking to someone on campus who says, I see you guys everywhere. I see you by the subway station, like by St. George Station. I see you in front of Sydney Smith. I see you in front of Robarts Library. I see you out by St. Michael's College. And he says, you're everywhere, right? We need to make the injustice of abortion impossible to ignore. Remember at the University of Toronto Mississauga campus, when the club there took the visual evidence and human rights apologetics out, it took about 2 hours before there was coverage in the campus newspapers and the whole campus was talking about abortion. And the same thing happened at Ryerson University, a university that is very strongly, has a strong pro-choice student union and culture. And within about 2 hours of organizing regular outreach, it was one of the most hotly debated topics on campus, and it stayed that way for the last 3.5 or 4 years since we've been doing regular outreach. See, that's how you change the culture. It's not one big event, and it's not just the importance of using our voice in front of abortion clinics like at crisis pregnancy centers like Aid to Women that are next door, or in the halls of political power, but it's going out to our schools, to our coworkers, to our streets, to people's homes in order to bring the truth about abortion to the general public, to make abortion unthinkable. It's that regular, engaging, and visible outreach that starts to turn the tide, to make abortion impossible to ignore, and to change hearts and minds so that we can save children's lives and spare women the trauma of abortion. So over the last 15 years, I've seen the pro-life movement in Toronto, in particular in the educational arm. I've seen the movement grow from a few annual outreach events to more outreach than any one person could possibly attend every week. 5 or 10 sessions from Scarborough to Etobicoke, from downtown to North York and beyond, reaching people in their homes, at subway stations, at universities, in high schools. We need to reach people where they are with the truth about abortion, because people face crisis pregnancies in high school, in university, because people need to know that Canada has no abortion law, so they can support private members' bills like the Sex Selective Abortion Act, so that people are aware of the resources available, like crisis pregnancy centers, like Aid to Women. We have to take the message out to the public in order to change the culture. And at the end of the day, it's not hard, like I explained. Human rights are for all human beings, not just some of us. They should start when the human being starts, and we know from science that's at fertilization. Through our apologetics, CCBR trains people on how to speak effectively about abortion. For example, when engaging in conversation, we always start with common ground, start with where we agree with somebody else, use analogies and tell stories to show rather than just tell the truth, not just present our conclusions, but illustrate the truth, and then ask questions to get other people thinking, right? So somebody says, my body, my choice. Well, it's, I agree with you that choice is really important. I think it's important that people have the ability to choose where to go to school or what to eat for lunch or maybe what kind of career or work they want to do. Um, don't you agree that some choices might be wrong, right? Like if I were to choose to assault somebody else or to choose to get in my car and drive while I'm drunk, don't you think that that choice would be wrong? Why do you think that choice would be wrong? Because it harms somebody else, right? And we can bring it back to abortion using common ground and analogies in order to illustrate the truth about the pro-life position. We don't just simply present our conclusions, but we're Socratic. We ask questions and we challenge pro-choice views in ways that actually change hearts and minds. So if you want to learn more about how to effectively engage the culture, we have a lot of resources available throughout the year and specifically during the pandemic. So normally, when we're not all staying at home, we have Toronto Against Abortion, which regularly engages in training and outreach projects across the city. We have summer internships in Toronto as well as in Calgary. You can find this all at endthekilling.ca if you go to the Take Action section. And in particular, we have a crash course in Toronto, a Toronto Pro-Life crash course every July. Now, we're waiting for another few weeks to see what the situation is with COVID-19 to decide whether or not we'll be able to run that crash course or not this year. But check out endthekilling.ca, the Take Action section, and keep an eye on that to see if the Toronto Pro-Life crash course will be able to run this July or if we'll have to postpone it or not. Holding out hope that we will be able to do something with it this summer. But also during the pandemic, we have specific ways to get involved as well. If you go to endthekilling.ca and check out the blog, I just published today 7 different ways to get active. We have online webinars, we have books. Check out Stuck. It's our book on pro-life apologetics, how to talk about abortion and change hearts and minds. And we have live streams where we explain how to have effective conversation and pro-life strategy. So you can learn today how to defend the pro-life position. And I just did a live stream a few days ago on how to have effective discussions on social media. So we can reach out to the culture now through social media too. So check out endthekilling.ca, the blog and the Take Action section for how to get involved today, because it's more important than ever to reach out the culture, and the front lines are out in our own communities too. We have to change the culture in order to bring an end to abortion.
Thanks a lot for that, Blaise. I want to concur actually with something that Blaise said there, because one of the people ask us all the time, how do you get so many young people involved with the sort of activism that you wouldn't think would attract young people, right? You're showing images that are awful to look at. Pro-lifers also think that, contrary to what some abortion activists might think. And why are so many people willing to go out in the streets, to get shouted at, to at times face violent pushback? And the reason for that is because every single one of us have seen dozens of minds changed. It's because we actually know that it does make a difference, because we've experienced that it makes a difference.